851, turn right, heading 180. 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
Aviation Daily, not a permanent series, but one that will feature when I get the chance. For timestamps on when certain topics are being covered, do feel free to check the description. Otherwise, stay tuned. For live aviation news reaction, also feel free to head over to my Twitter account, now 10k strong. Today's daily recap begins with All Nippon Airways and their Airbus A380. The airline is still the only other customer, other than Emirates, still awaiting delivery of the world's largest passenger plane, and one that's seeing production cease next year. Currently, ANA has 2 delivered of its 3, all featuring a special livery and all operating on the same service. However, for the final Airbus A380, which has already completed its first test flight and was recently seen flying, it will have a delayed delivery following the COVID-19 pandemic, and in turn what this has brought on, the zero travel demand, as well as the mass grounding of aircraft, such as the Airbus A380. Analysts and an ANA executive stated that the Japanese aviation industry could lose up to US 18.6 billion, or that's 2 trillion yen, in overall revenue. ANA have been using their A380s to transport passengers from Japan to Honolulu and back. This is an incredibly lucrative market, as discussed in other videos, and one that has countless airlines already flying on it. By ANA offering the A380, they were able to offer a different type of product to other airlines, while also utilising a special paint scheme to really pay respects to the Hawaiian culture, and also potentially draw in new customers. Moving along to Virgin Australia, an Australian airline as the name suggests, and one that also filed for administration in April. It's worth noting though that the airline has always had the ambition to get back in the skies, properly. Whilst flights do continue to operate during this period, it was taking some time to find bidders and to find the funding to secure the future of the airline. That has actually progressed significantly over the past month and since I last covered them here on the channel. And according to many, it's been narrowed down to just 2 bidders, that being Bain Capital and Cyprus Capital Partners, which are not only, according to the Virgin Australia administrator leader, if you will, well funded, but in addition they have experience in the aviation industry. He said specifically, both Bain Capital and Cyprus Capital Partners are well funded, have deep aviation experience, and they see real value in the business and its future. So what's next in regards to Virgin Australia, you may ask? Well, Virgin would ideally like a binding agreement to come in place by June the 30th, that's the end of this month, with June the 12th being the date set for the final bidders to come through. While these are the 2 favourites and the ones Virgin Australia are really interested in, we just have to wait and see what's going to take place in the coming 10 days or so. Emirates has also continued to make headlines with news emerging following their pilots being laid off. It's the latest story in a host, from aircraft retirements to potential delivery deferrals, all surrounding Emirates. In the latest news, the Dubai-based airline has laid off a number of its staff following this pandemic. Reuters were the first ones who reported news of this, noting around 180 employees would face the difficult news that they no longer had a position within the airline. In the same Reuters report, they noted, thanks to sources, that cabin crew and trainee pilots had indeed been impacted by the recent cuts specifically. Meanwhile, the final story of today is over in Canada with Air Canada, who are looking at restarting their international and domestic network to an even bigger scale this coming summer. The airline has already restarted services from its hubs in Canada through to the United States, with the likes of Washington Dulles, LAX, San Francisco and more featuring. It, however, is also looking at restarting further services into the United States in the coming weeks, but this needs to receive the appropriate regulatory approval first before they can commence these again. In regards to specifically international services, the airline through this month and into July is looking at starting once again services through to Rome, Athens, Lisbon, or from Toronto, among others, of course. Ultimately, they want to have roughly 100 destinations across Canada, internationally, and the United States on offer for their customers for at least part of the summer 2020 schedule. It comes as airlines race to ensure that they are prepared for those flying when restrictions ease. Wizz Air is another airline specifically in Europe that has done similar with competition. These airlines are actually being praised for their actions as well. Thank you very much for tuning into this type of video. If you would like to see more of these daily or weekly recaps, let me know. And as always, thanks very much for the support. I will see you all next time.